Asbestos waste is potentially hazardous. Any asbestos-containing material that's ready for disposal is defined as asbestos waste. Asbestos waste also includes contaminated building materials, tools that cannot be decontaminated, personal protective equipment, and rags used for cleaning. Asbestos waste cannot be reused for another purpose or stored. It must be cleaned up as soon as possible after removal and disposed of appropriately. In this segment, we're going to look at the correct methods for storage, transportation and disposal of asbestos waste. First, storage. The key to safe storage of asbestos waste is double-skinned containment. It must be either wrapped in 200 micron heavy-duty thick plastic and then wrapped again, or placed into asbestos waste bags and then those bags placed inside a second bag. The external surface of each bag should be cleaned to remove any adhering dust. The bags should be twisted tightly, folded over, and the neck secured in the folded position with adhesive tape or any other effective method. Asbestos waste bags should be 200 micron thick plastic and no more than 1200 millimeters long and 900 millimeters wide. Controlled wetting of the waste should be employed to reduce asbestos dust emissions during wrapping. Hard and sharp asbestos waste requires preliminary sealing or a protective covering before it's placed in the waste bags to minimise the risk of damage to the bags. Whichever containment method you select, make sure the packages are not too heavy. In order to minimise the risk of a bag tearing or splitting, and also to assist in manual handling, asbestos waste bags should not be more than half full. All wrapped asbestos waste should have a warning statement such as: "Caution, asbestos. Do not damage or open. Do not inhale dust. Cancer and lung disease hazard." Only unused asbestos bags should be used, and bags marked for asbestos waste should not be used for any other purpose. 2 people should be available to carry awkwardly shaped packages. This makes transfer of the wrapped debris easier and reduces the risk of the packages being dropped or broken. When you're going to remove asbestos, there are a number of important things to take into consideration. Careful planning will reduce the risk of your asbestos debris leaking from its containment packages, potentially saving you from having to do extra decontamination work. Minimise the distance to be travelled with the packaged asbestos debris, as it's likely to be heavy. For internal asbestos removal work, you could consider lining the transfer route with 200 micron thick plastic to decrease the risk of contamination in areas away from the worksite. Remove obstacles. Ensure gates along the transfer route are open so that people carrying the packaged asbestos always have 2 hands free for the task. And minimise the number of corners to be turned. The more corners, the greater the risk of the packages breaking and spilling asbestos. If the debris cannot be removed from the site immediately, ensure it is stored in a restricted area. It should not be stored on-site overnight or longer unless stored in a solid waste drum, bin or skip, sealed and secured upon completion of each day's work so that unauthorised access is prevented. If you're using lined skips to remove the debris, they should be sealed over and signed if they are to be left for an extended period. And whenever the asbestos debris is stored, make sure it's not a trip hazard. As with any potentially hazardous material, there are a variety of state regulations which apply to the transport of asbestos. commercially produced asbestos has to be transported in an appropriately EPA licensed waste transport vehicle. Licensed asbestos removers will organise appropriate vehicles, or they can provide line skips or other containers and arrange correct disposal once they're filled. If local regulations allow you to dispose of your own asbestos debris, you must transport it to a landfill approved by local authorities. For safe transport of the debris, place the wrapped sheeting or waste bags into the back of a truck, utility or trailer, being careful not to damage the plastic. Make sure the load is secure and cannot move, and that it's not in contact with anything which could damage the plastic wrapping. Check the plastic for holes before starting your journey, and if there are any, cover them with duct tape to make sure fibres can't escape. It's also a good idea to cover the whole load to prevent fibre release. In Queensland, the Environmental Protection Waste Management Regulation 2000, Waste Management Regulation, defines all regulated waste as trackable waste. As such, any quantity of commercial asbestos or more than 250 kilograms of domestic asbestos waste must be subject to waste tracking requirements as required by the Waste Management Regulation. The waste generator is responsible for initiating waste tracking documentation on the approved EPA forms. Finally, let's talk about correct disposal of asbestos debris. Unlike many other hazardous materials, asbestos will not leach into other areas, so disposal is by burial and ongoing management of the designated burial area. Disposal of your asbestos waste must be at an approved council waste disposal facility. So it can be buried correctly, some waste facilities will not accept asbestos without prior arrangements. Check with the waste facility first.